It starts small, one conversation. He says something simple, clear, nothing crazy, and somehow it turns into something he never said. Let's say he says, "I just need a minute." Somehow that simple sentence turns into, "You never have time for me." So now the man is sitting there trying to fix a meaning he didn't even create. So he slows it down and he explains it again. He's more careful this time, thinking maybe if I change the language a little bit, it'll make more sense to her. But it doesn't, because now the focus isn't what he said, it's how it was felt. The conversation is no longer about understanding, it's about defending. So now he's explaining his explanation, trying to clean up something that keeps getting reshaped in real time. After a while, something clicks for him in terms of strategy. He realizes, I can say this same thing 10 different ways and still end up in the same place. And that's the moment everything changes. Not a loud change, nothing too dramatic, just quiet adjustment. He starts shortening his sentences, removing details, cutting out the parts that he knows will get twisted, till eventually there's nothing left to cut. And that's how a man goes from explaining to simplifying to silence.
Somewhere along the way, men were trained that no was only the opening of a negotiation, that it had to come with a paragraph of justification or it didn't count. In 2026, men dropped the paragraph. No became a complete sentence again, and the people used to negotiating are finding there's nothing left to argue with.
One of the most disheartening things about having a feminist awakening is when you start to see all the inequality, the sexism, misogyny, not just historically, but how it shows up in the present day, and you talk about it with the men in your life, or you bring it up with them, you point it out, and they don't care, or they're dismissive, or they defend it, justify it, make jokes, and then label you some, oh, what are you, a woke feminist now? Oh my gosh, you're gonna go dye your hair blue? Yeah, I wish I was a woman, because then I could just have as much sex as I wanted. Being a woman is so much easier than being a man. You just gotta look good. When you see it so clearly, and you realize that the men in your life are no exception, that they are participating and upholding sexist structures, sexist ways of thinking, and they have zero interest in learning or changing. And of course, isn't every man in your life, but it doesn't have to be every man to be heartbreaking. It could be one man in your life, your dad, your brother, your cousin, your guy friend, your partner. It doesn't matter how many or who it is. It is still one of the most dehumanizing experiences to talk about something like that and then have them make light of it and not care. Because in that moment, you look around, you look at them, and you feel like they don't really see you as fully human.
You're the woman that men want, and that guy picked you and then left you. And I'm about to prove to you why that is proof of your power. Many men are socialized their entire lives to believe that a large part of what makes them a man lies in the woman they're able to obtain. Before they've even begun to reflect about what they have to offer or what they have to bring to the table, they're running frantically in the rat race to win the ultimate prize. Men are deeply preoccupied with outdoing one another, and often their manlyhood is validated through the woman that stands beside them. It's a shortcut, it's a performance, it's a way to feel like a man without actually having to become one. So when he saw you, you were like the winning lottery ticket. You were the dream. You were the validation. You were the proof to him and everyone around him that he was somebody. That's why it felt for you like he was really into you. That's why it felt to you that he was proud to have you on his arm. That's why when you were out together, you knew that he felt great. The cracks began to show because being perceived as a man can only carry you so far. You have to eventually show up as a man. And he began to wrestle with himself, because all of a sudden he wasn't just basking in your glow. He wasn't just basking in the glow of being able to get you. He had to confront what it took to keep you. All the things that maketh the man: protecting, providing, showing up emotionally. All the things he had avoided his whole life, or had not been taught his whole life. And in that moment, he saw the gap between the man he was pretending to be and the man he'd actually have to become. The truth is, his ego could not stomach that. Instead of being invigorated by the challenge, his ego whispered, "You're inadequate. You're failing at this. You're not enough." And that's when he started to resent you. He resented what you demanded without even saying anything. In fact, it terrified him, which is why you heard things like, "You're better off without me. I can't do this. I'll never make you happy." And so he ran. But he didn't just run away from you. He ran to someone. Why? Do you ask? No, it's not because he didn't care about you. He ran to find someone else because, remember, he hasn't changed. His status of manhood relies on the woman standing beside him. And you might say, "Well, she wasn't me, nor is she anything like me. In fact, she was much, much easier than me." You're right. The ultimate prize is in obtaining his dream woman. He tried that and he felt that he failed. So what's the next prize? In the quantity of women he can obtain. If he can't find his value in his dream woman, he will find his value in his quantity of women. Him running off to another woman is not proof that he didn't like you. You have to stop saying that. It's just old news. It's proof that he did really like you and he couldn't manage his big emotions, and it's proof that all of his coping strategies for emotion are poor. Going and sitting alone would actually represent growth. Potentially. It would represent that he was learning how to be with himself, which is a powerful thing. No, he can't, and he isn't, because he cannot cope. I can't get her, so I'll just get lots. I can't get the woman, so I'm gonna get lots of women. He didn't choose to rise, he chose to run. It's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of your power.
An overexplained no isn't really a no, it's a door left open. Every reason you give is just another thing for the other person to argue against. Men figured out that the explanation was the leak. Close the leak and the boundary actually holds. That's not coldness. That's just a boundary that works.
My favorite thing about men using their biology to justify their bad behavior is that they absolutely cannot stand or comprehend when women do it, and that like their biological drives have an equivalent in women, except we just don't use it to excuse bad behavior. I had to explain this to my own father once, God rest his soul, is that like the equivalent for you of wanting a woman who is younger than you significantly and attractive is a woman wanting a man who can provide. That is also a biological drive. That is a resource-driven drive. They want resources for themselves and their offspring. If you say, "Oh, I can't control it, it's biology," okay, I'm gonna make that same argument. However, have never used that argument every single month during ovulation when I am basically a werewolf at a full moon, that your need to spread your seed, that biological drive to spread your seed, that's what women experience every single month during ovulation. Because our cave women ancestors increased their chances by increasing their choices, right? Okay, that drive is to basically get as many different kinds of seed as possible so that the best genetic material, the best man, wins, the best provider. Also our spicy little cave women ancestors. If you spread it around with as many cavemen in the cave as possible, you are more likely to get resources provided to you. If none of those men can determine if it's their kid or not, they're more likely to take care of it if it's their own kid, you know? But if you can't prove it because you busted with all 10 of them, that is also biological. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. If you actually wanted to read more on this topic, I don't love this book. I'm not saying you should read this book, but I am saying if you want to read more on this topic, Sex at Dawn, a little controversial. Men who have not actually read this book but like to argue for non-monogamy like to reference this book, and they hate when you actually have read the book. And it is in fact, yes, monogamy is in that book's argument somewhat unnatural and gives lots of examples, but for both men and women, okay? Not just for men. It gives a lot of examples of both men and women across different countries, cultures, tribes, history about how it doesn't make sense from a biology or resource perspective that we would be with one partner, any of us humans. And again, I don't agree with this take. I'm a monogamous girl, okay? But I like to have my brain expanded. And if you're gonna make a stupid ass argument as a man about how it's just your biology, I'm gonna come back with my biology to level that playing field.
When he says he doesn't want to argue, but all you want to do is talk, this is the response I used to get all the time in my previous relationships when I was with narcissists and avoidant men. And oh my God, it was so frustrating because guess what? I didn't want to argue either. All I wanted to do was sit down like two grown adults and have a calm conversation and come to a resolution. But instead, I was met with silent treatment, or he'd shut me down with aggression and tell me to shut up. And here's the truth, ladies. Avoidant men get very uncomfortable with closeness. And it's crazy, but they actually see you two sitting down and coming to a resolution as another form of you getting even closer. So your only option is to back off, cross your fingers and hope that he comes round. But this will always end in you sacrificing your needs and compromising on your happiness. This is why I created my 12-week Become the Secure Woman program to help women break this constant cycle of attracting avoidant men.
Men also stopped taking the bait on the argument itself. The old pattern was simple. Get pulled into a fight, defend yourself for an hour, lose the evening. The new pattern is shorter. State the position once. Don't relitigate it. If it turns into a fight anyway, leave the room. The argument needs two people. He stopped being the second one.
Men want the woman they married, but never take responsibility for the woman they made her become.
Ladies, a man who will not argue with you or butt heads with you does not respect you. And I know y'all hate to hear this because it's always, as a man, why are you arguing with a woman? But that's it exactly right there. You know what I'm saying? Like that mindset, a man who has that mindset does not view you as a counterpart. You know what I'm saying? They view you as below them. They view you as less competent. You know what I'm saying? Childlike, even. Basically saying a woman cannot go toe-to-toe with me logically and intelligently, so there's no point for me to even argue or give them the time of day. And it's so easy to make y'all subscribe to this when it's wrapped up in a way of basically like upping men who just let their girls say whatever to them. But the reality is he's letting you say whatever because he knows you don't stand on business. You know what I'm saying? Like the ideal a lot of times is realistic because sometimes it is no respect in what you're saying because you're not going to stand on it respectfully.
I dropped the whole trying to be something for somebody a long time ago. I don't have any trouble being myself, and I don't have any trouble saying no when I mean no. I don't feel there is a, pressing responsibility to please everyone. I'm not unkind to people. No. I love people. I would much prefer saying hello and who are you and what are you doing today than giving a selfie because selfies stop the world. They stop life. You then go like that, and it's going on Instagram to give people a false sense of relevance.
A lot of this traces back to men actually working on themselves. Therapy, reading, just paying attention. One of the first things that work teaches is that you're not responsible for managing everyone else's reaction to your honest answer. You give the answer. Their feelings about it are theirs to handle. That single shift kills the over-explaining habit overnight.
So people always talk about that having boundaries is really important to have in a relationship, but they don't really talk about what are healthy boundaries and what does that actually look like. So I'm going to give you 4 examples of really healthy boundaries to have in a relationship, and any healthy relationship I've ever seen has always had these 4, so they're pretty solid. The first one is having boundaries around alone time. You always want to encourage and actually completely allow alone time. It's very easy for couples to get too meshed and spend too much time together. So healthy relationships always have enough creative space for alone time. The second boundary is around communicating during a disagreement, and it always includes no yelling, no name calling, nothing that's disrespectful. You're able to communicate and let your feelings out, but it's within a boundary. It's within kind of this area, and you can't go outside of it where you become disrespectful. Now, the third boundary is actually around social media. Just what's okay and not okay to post. Generally, even if you only talk about it one time, at least you've had the conversation. But there's a lot of couples that don't do this, and it can create weird feelings or fights or disagreements. So it's better to just have that talk up front. That way you understand where the actual line is. And the fourth boundary is actually about social, not on social media, but like in social settings. So like out with friends or family, what's okay, what's acceptable, how do we want to be when it comes to friends and family? Do we need to check in with each other in terms of allowing people over to the house or going to parties, or there needs to be some level of communication between you two around social settings. And really, by the way, it all comes down to communication. You two are the ones who decide what's okay and what's not okay. And the only way you do that is by communicating. You have to be able to talk about it and figure out what works for you. And by the way, these should be really easy conversations to have. This shouldn't be like a crazy, anxious, you getting worked up type of thing. In the best, healthiest relationships, you're always able to have these conversations, or even make changes to them in the future at a really easygoing pace. It shouldn't give you that like gut-wrenching feeling. And by the way, if you want more examples, let me know in the comments. I can always make more.
This is all about emotional regulation, because the moment you lose control of your emotions, you lose your leadership. And this is what men need to understand. Your job in conflict is not to win. It is to stay grounded. The second you raise your voice, defend your ego, or explain yourself emotionally, you've already stepped out of your frame. Strong men don't argue from emotion. They respond from clarity and calmness. So how do you actually do that? First, you need to learn how to slow your body down. If your chest is tight, your jaw is clenched, your heart is racing, you are not thinking in the moment. You are already reacting. So you need to pause, breathe. Silence is the furthest thing from weakness. That is your control. Second, stop trying to be understood in the moment. When emotions are high, understanding is impossible, and all you're doing is feeding the fire. You don't explain, you don't justify, you don't need to convince anything. You just set a boundary. I'm not having this conversation like this. We will talk when we are both calm. And then you mean it, and you walk away and you disengage. Third, detach from the outcome itself. The man who needs to win the argument is the man who has already lost his frame. Your power is staying centered regardless of her reaction. If she calms down, good. If she escalates, that tells you something too. Either way, you stay steady. That is your leadership, because a regulated man brings safety. A reactive man brings chaos, and women don't trust chaos. They test it daily. So if you want peace in your relationship, stop trying to manage her emotions and start mastering your own. That is how you lead. That is how you keep respect, and that is how you stay in control without ever needing to raise your voice.
Here's what's actually underneath the panic. As long as a man explained himself, there was a way in, a thread to pull, a point to challenge, a guilt angle to work. A man who simply says, "That doesn't work for me," and stops talking has removed every handle. There's nothing to grab. And for anyone used to grabbing, that's the unsettling part.
As a woman, if your partner is depriving you of intimacy, then you need to ask yourself one of these three questions. Firstly, is there any chance that there's a loss of attraction? Has your appearance changed drastically, and could that be affecting the intimacy? Secondly, is there any chance that your partner is addicted to pornography? Pornography will completely kill motivation to pursue sex in real life because they're replacing it with on-screen sex. And finally, is there any chance of an affair? Because most men, in my experience, do not go without intimacy. They just replace it with somebody else. So check those three things.
When a man finally enforces his boundaries, everything changes. A woman will test you, sometimes without even realizing it. She will push, she'll provoke, she'll try to see if you actually mean what you say. And the moment you let it slide, you have just taught her that your word means nothing. Most women don't actually want to dominate you. They want to trust you, but they're testing you. They want to know that you're unshakable, that you can hold your ground
even when she's emotional, reactive, or testing you, because deep down, she's not testing your patience, she's testing your strength. When a man stands firm, something shifts in her. The feminine either softens or she self-destructs. If she's healed, she'll respect it. She'll feel safe again. But if she's unhealed, she will call it control, manipulation, or toxicity, because accountability feels like punishment to a woman who's never had to face herself. Men, hold the damn line, not from ego, but from your integrity. When you keep allowing disrespect, chaos, or emotional outbursts just to keep the peace, you're not keeping peace. You're avoiding conflict. And avoiding conflict kills attraction faster than anything. A real man doesn't argue with emotion. He stands on his principle. He does not match her energy. He anchors through her chaos. That is when she learns respect, not through dominance, but through consistency. Because women don't trust words, they trust patterns. And when you stay solid long enough, she'll either rise into that feminine energy or reveal that she was never meant for your energy in the first place. Either way, you win because you keep your standards.
No is a complete sentence. Stop attaching a defense to it. The moment you overexplain, you've turned your boundary into a debate you can lose. Say it once, clearly, and let it stand. The right people respect the answer. The wrong people just wanted something to argue with. Subscribe to Alpha Reloaded for more. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and hit that like button on your way out. See you next time.